Please welcome President Amit Singh.
Hola, buenos dias, bon dia. Welcome everybody to Barcelona and Ignite 2019. Excited to see people here, friendly faces in the audience. It's been a year since I joined the company, exactly a year ago. And I thought what I'd do is share with you a few of my observations, but also share with you the strategy, the investment strategy we have for Palo Alto Networks. Let's start with the changing nature of threats. Every day, you see it in the press. Yesterday, the UK Labour Party got attacked with a big DDoS attack. Last week, a large Italian bank. Massive disruption to business, to elections, to our physical security, to the electric grid, to academic institutions. It's everywhere, wherever data exists. And the stakes continue to rise. Recent attack on a bank in the United States caused a $2 billion drop in market value for the company. $2 billion in one day. Academic institutions, a few weeks ago, it was a front page article in the New York Times. Massive loss of intellectual property because research is being stolen by threat actors. The new law that's going to pass in California, GDPR here in Europe, massive fines if you lose consumer data. And the hardest part about our jobs, your jobs in this industry, is the bad guys have to be right just once. We have to be right 100% of the time. Incredibly difficult and challenging. I think the second part of what is a massive shift is the journey to business transformation led by cloud computing is now mainstream. Everything is changing about we build products, what we use, open source, how we deploy products using frameworks automatically, the kind of controls or lack of controls that we have in the deployment process. I was actually talking to a few CIOs around, we used to have code reviews and check-in processes, and pretty rigorous. Not to say that we don't have those anymore, but there's an agile methodology in place, which actually puts tremendous pressure on DevOps and the security infrastructure that's supporting the expansive nature of the surface we have to protect. People are using all sorts of different techniques, whether it's native lift and shift of products to the cloud, or rebuilding it in containers or serverless technology to give them more leverage. The perimeter is shifting, where what used to be the edge, where you could control it quite nicely within your data center, is out to mobile devices, branches, and elsewhere. We have way too many solutions. I met this client a few weeks ago. I don't think they're in the audience, and I actually won't say who they are. 212 different vendors, no vendor left behind, that they had as part of the network. We joke about it, but the fact is, it makes it very, very hard to operate that infrastructure. Every one of these products has alerts. You have to manage them, you have to patch them, you have to integrate them, you have to have skills around all these solutions. As an industry, we actually have done a poor job bringing all of that together and providing insights to our clients. And that's something that makes your jobs, I think, a lot more challenging. And lastly, look, there's just not enough talent. 3 million jobs, according to the New York Times, by 2021. This is a great industry for us to be in, but it's hard to recruit for, hard to retain people, hard to manage this infrastructure. And so across all of these trends, I think we need to rethink and reinvent cybersecurity. actually take it to the next level. And I thought what I'd share with you just a few ideas and approaches that we're considering in the company to actually make your jobs a little bit easier. There's massive investment. We're in investment mode at Palo Alto Networks. Just to give you one statistic, over the last year, our engineering capacity is up 50%, 50%. Massive investment going on in the company. And a few themes that we're looking at, the lens through which we're looking at as we make these investments. First, try to make our products more integrated. More integrated so you have to do less of the work. Okay? Second, build automation as a core principle across the infrastructure that we provide you to handle the complex environments and, frankly, the security posture you need to deploy. You're not going to be able to put human talent against an increasingly automated and an enemy that's using machines. We need to figure out rule sets and optionality that you can deploy through automation. And the last thing, intelligence. Intelligence built into our products, so it's self-healing. Intelligence built into the capabilities, so you use machine learning to use data as your friend so you can find patterns and identify unknown threats before you have one of those incidents that unfortunately puts you on the front pages of the local newspaper. And we're doing this fundamentally in 3 categories. Let me just spend a few minutes on each one. The first, securing the enterprise. This is the core business that the company was founded on: physical firewalls and integrated cloud-delivered subscriptions that keep you updated all the time against the threats that we identify. We've taken that capability and actually expanded it to virtual form factors with virtual firewalls, so you can have resiliency, you can deploy them in your cloud infrastructure, deploy it at the edge, or delivered as a service on the cloud in a new category that I'm very excited, and you'll hear later about it, called SASE, a new magic quadrant with our friends at Gartner that we are proud to be leading. This allows you just great capability to take all the investments you made in rules and deploy it anywhere you want in the form factor of your choice for your mobile networks, for your branches, so you don't have to hairpin all that data back to the data center, yet you can manage and operate all of that from the same management console, giving you tremendous, tremendous flexibility. We're excited that in this area, firewall as a platform, we want to continue to deploy additional subscriptions just like we did with Wildfire, just like we did with many other capabilities, so you can deploy things like SD-WAN, DLP, and many other capabilities in the future, like IoT. The second area that we are tremendously excited about is the investments we've been making in securing your journey to the cloud. As I mentioned, expansive area, fast-moving, lots of deployments going on, and we want to build the best-in-class suite irrespective of how you choose to deploy, whether it's native code, whether it's containers, whether it's serverless technology, whether it's one cloud, whether it's multi-cloud or hybrid cloud. We have the entire suite, and we're actually the leading company in this area to help you in your journey for cloud transformation. And you'll hear later on today some exciting announcements of how we're bringing the latest technology between Twistlock and RedLock together. The third area that we're excited about, securing your future, AI-driven autonomous security using data, analytics, and automation. We've spent a lot of energy bringing our endpoint product, traps, firewalls, combine that into a single data model, and be able to use machine learning against it to find those hard-to-find unknown threats. And that's why we won the MITRE Award. We're very proud of that fact. And now We're actually expanding this. You'll hear later on from Nir and Lee into non-Palo Alto data sources. Very excited about that launch today. And then finally, automate. Automate so much of what we do using products like Demisto, so you can apply runbooks, you can apply best practices, and create automation in your infrastructure so you don't always have to bring human talent to an increasingly machine-driven fight. So those are the three investment areas for us: securing the enterprise, securing the cloud through our Prisma set of products, and securing the future with Cortex. And we're seeing tremendous adoption across the industry. A large healthcare company deploying it across 30 countries, taking and consolidating 120 different solutions down to a few, creating great value by actually taking their research assets, putting them behind these capabilities so they can protect them, automating the SOC using our API. Unfortunately, a large engineering consulting company that was hit by ransomware last year. We actually landed a team, deployed the Traps agent, deployed the firewalls, integrated that data, and actually showed them how they can prevent zero-day attacks. They're in a much better cybersecurity posture as a result of that. And lastly, in transportation and logistics, large French multinational company basically taking the firewall capability that they already have deployed and extending it to the edge of the network. So you can take all that mobile user, all that mobile traffic, the 3,000 locations that they have, and deploy the same capability that they had on their data center as they move out to the edge. And I'm actually excited that in this forum, in this community, many of these clients are here to share with you their journey as to what they went through as they're deploying these capabilities inside their own enterprises. Thanks to many of you here. We're proud and humbled to be the #1 cybersecurity company in the world by revenue, by customer base across 65 countries. As you can see, 71% of the Global 2000 use our products every day. And we're very proud of the CSAT scores and all the J.D. Power's awards we've run for exemplary service. So much of it is not just product anymore, since we are delivering these as software and cloud-delivered form factors. And right here in Europe, we have over 20,000 customers and about over 1,000 employees that are resident here to help support you every day. So we have a great event. You're going to have a lot of fun here. You're going to learn a lot. You'll connect. You'll share best practices. We have 2,500 folks registered. Thank you for all of you for showing up. We have 84 breakout sessions. This is what you've always asked for. Give me more detail. Take me, inside the products. Lots of hands-on labs. And as you can see, an incredible panel of speakers. We are proud to actually have these clients come in and tell you not just about the products, because they're just part of the story, about everything they had to do to make cybersecurity work for them. And all the partner speakers, and frankly, thank you to many of our sponsors for making this event possible. See, Backbox, NTT, and all the folks that have made incredible investments in our partnership together. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for supporting Palo Alto Networks. We take this responsibility as a partner very seriously. We're just trying to make the world a little bit safer every day. And to tell you more about the technology underneath everything else, please welcome the CTO, founder. The third adjective I'd say is proxy killer. Fourth adjective I'd say is a connoisseur in incredible T-shirts, Nir Zook.
Okay. Thank you, Amit. Hello, everyone. Okay, still sleeping. I'm the jet-lagged one, and you're sleeping. Come on. Hello? Okay, maybe some questions to make it interactive. First, a simple question. Who's here today? Anyone here today? About 10% of you, okay? Maybe another question. Who has a CRM solution in their company? Only our CIO? Come on. Who has a CRM? Okay, this is not going to work. Okay, who has more than 1 or 2 CRM solutions? One of you, 2 of you? I don't know why, but okay. Who has more than 1 or 2 HR solutions? Few of you. Who's using more than, let's say, a handful of network infrastructure vendors? Few. Who has more than 20 cybersecurity vendors? All of you, right? This is the way the industry looks. Every time there is a problem, there is another patch, another solution coming out, and it just doesn't make sense. Amit said that we're the largest vendor in the industry. Last fiscal year, we did almost $3 billion in revenues. That's in a $100 billion industry. You won't find any other industry where the leading vendor has 3% market share. It just doesn't happen. Only in cybersecurity it happens, and this is the outcome. Okay, the outcome is just something that doesn't make sense, unmanageable, and sometimes I go back and try to think how we got to this point, and maybe let's go back 25 years ago. So for those of you who remember, let's get a little bit geeky here. 25 years ago, firewalls were ACLs, access lists, embedded in routers. Anybody use them 25 years ago? Yeah, quite a few of you. But then they kind of didn't work, right? Because you had to allow, and I'm getting really geeky here, okay? You had to allow all packets that didn't have a SYN on them, right? Basically, all established TCP connections had to be allowed, not that secure. And then applications started to change. They became more dynamic. Applications like FTP, remember FTP, where all of you had to open everything coming from source port 21? Remember that? Yes, yes. Very secure, right? Because nobody can fake a telnet connection coming from port 21. And it didn't work, and we needed a solution. So the first solution, the first go-to solution, at least of the network security industry, is a proxy. So we put up a proxy. The proxy would take some of these connections, break them, add a lot of latency, and very few applications would be supported, in this case FTP, but it kind of worked. But then more and more applications came out, and it just didn't work really well. So what did I have to do? I had to step back and say, okay, first, 2 boxes, 1 network location doesn't make sense. Let's try to do it in one. And second, there has to be a better solution than just breaking the TCP connection. And the better solution became known as stateful inspection, right? Which we created about 25 years ago. And then that was great, but then applications kept changing. Applications started developing vulnerabilities because it wasn't just basic web browsing and SMTP that's been around forever and FTP and Telnet. More and more applications, usually running on top of port 80, came out, became more and more vulnerable, and we needed something to deal with that vulnerabilities. So first came IDS. Of course, IDSs didn't work really well because they only created more problems, because you had to deal with what they did. So I had to create the first IPS in the world. Fine, that worked. And then more and more applications started running on port 80, and we had to do something with that port 80. So what do? Great, we put a proxy, and then that's what we do every time we have a problem that we can't figure out a solution because nobody's willing to step back and think about it. But that's okay. But then more and more things had to be put on the network, like sandboxes and network-based anti-malware and, I don't know, behavior analytics probes and more and more. So we had to step back and look at this and say, okay, how can we take all of that without putting just everything in one box and calling it a UTM? How can we just take a step back and find a fundamental fix for this? And the answer, of course, was, let's create something that understands all applications and applies all these different security checks against all applications as a subscription service, and we called it the next generation firewall. And the next generation firewall came as hardware, then as software, then as a service delivered from the cloud. But that's what the next generation firewall did. And as you can see, there is a constant fight between those who just want to add more and more and more and more solutions to solve or to plug another hole, and those, the few of us, that are willing to step back and invest, number one, CPU cycles in our heads, and number two, the money that it takes to build the right solution. And today, I want to talk about yet another situation that's brewing, where the industry is suggesting that we need to make things overcomplicated because there are different things that are happening and we need to plug holes, and suggest something that I think is much better, okay? This time, we're going to try to do it before everybody here buys the new solution or the different solutions to plug the holes, and give you the opportunity to do the right thing from the get-go. So what's happening, yet again, is a change in applications. Okay, remember, 25 years ago, it was applications becoming dynamic. 15 years ago, or over the next following 10 years, until 15 years ago, it was applications becoming vulnerable, and applications starting to run on the same port. And now the challenge is that, whereas in the past, things looked like this, right? We had a data center, a corporate data center, whether on-premise or co-located, and we had our network security stack in front of it, and the internet. And then, because applications were sitting in the corporate data center, we used IP VPNs, like MPLS, VPLS, or whatever, in order to access those applications. And we had a few mobile users, so we deployed an on-premise remote access solution. Maybe it was part of the firewall, maybe it was a separate one to support our mobile users, and things were simple. Today, the challenge is that applications are moving to the cloud. First, they started moving to SaaS. Then we started deploying corporate applications in the public cloud. And this just doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense that our branch office traffic will go through our corporate data center, and then from there go out to the internet, into our SaaS applications, and into our public cloud deployed applications. And it doesn't make sense that the mobile users will take the same path as well. We need something better. So the solution? Let's plug the holes, right? So what we're starting to see the industry suggesting that we do is, first, let's take off the mobile users, right? What do we do to solve the mobile user issue? What do we deploy? A proxy, right? So the first thing we do is we deploy a proxy for the mobile users. There are different solutions for that. So deploy a proxy for the mobile users. And then for the branch offices that we want to connect directly to the internet, we have the challenge of the internet not being reliable enough. We can't count on latency. We can't count on jitter. We can't count on packet drop, and so on. So we'll use a technology called SD-WAN, right? So SD-WAN, basically, instead of buying one internet connection, you buy two internet connections from two different vendors, and you do something to measure the different network parameters on both links. You can buy more, by the way, and then you choose the best route or the best interface to put your packets on, and you just hope that this decision will be the right one throughout the entire way, which is never the case. So what happens with SD-WAN is, number one, once we do that, we have a security challenge. Our traffic doesn't go through our security stack in the data center anymore, which means that either we deploy our security stack in each branch office, which is usually very difficult to do. So what we do is we deploy a subset of it, or sometimes we deploy almost nothing and stick our head in the ground and just hope that the bad guys don't know that the branch offices are not connected directly to the internet, kind of like allowing port 21 source port to get into our network, right? But the other challenges is that the performance is not reliable. I'll explain that in a second, why the performance of SD-WAN is not as reliable as you might think it is, and that leads to increased complexity. So the reason the performance is not reliable is because when you have two links and you start measuring the network parameters on them, that really works well in what we call the first mile, or the first few hops, right? The first few routers, or I think here you say routers, right? So that works okay, but then after a few hops, things started going a little bit bad because you don't really know which path the packets are going to take. The paths are changing all the time. And then, lastly, if we're going to SaaS applications or cloud applications, the peering at the end, you just don't know where the peering is really going to go out from. So the performance of SD-WAN, for those of you who've tried it already, you know, is not that great and can't really replace an IP VPN. So what ends up happening for those that go with SD-WAN is that you end up building your own IP VPN. Essentially what you do is you put hubs in different places around the world. Usually there will be 2 to 4 in the United States, quite a few in Europe, and you'll put some in Asia, and if you have offices in Africa, you'll put in Africa, and so on. And I mean, so on would be Antarctica, I think, right, and Australia. But then you connect those different hubs with your own private league that you buy from different providers around the world, depending on the region, and then you buy your own peering into the SaaS applications and the public clouds that you care about, and different branch offices will connect to different hubs based on where they are, and this becomes much more complicated and much more expensive than IP VPNs. Okay? And we still haven't solved the security issue. So now you have to take your security stack and deploy it in all branch offices, or you take the security stack and you deploy it where you deployed your hubs, and the complexity is just unbelievable. So rather than taking an existing situation and trying to change it so that it works, so you put a proxy for the mobile users and you use SD-WAN for your branch offices, what we think needs to happen is you take a step back, you look at the challenge that you have, and you try to find the right solution, even if you have to build it from scratch, which in this case we didn't have to. But that's what you do. You have to find the right solution for the right problem. And we think that the right solution for this is to build a private network, a worldwide private network, an IP VPN network, and then allow onboarding that network from using different methods, either IPsec or SD-WAN from the branch, using IPsec or SSL for remote users. You can even connect your partners to this through IPsec or SSL or clientless SSL, what's called SSL VPN. That network has to have the right peering into all the different SaaS applications and all the different cloud providers that anyone that is using that network might use. Of course, it needs to have links back to your corporate data centers where you still and will probably for a very long time have applications. And most importantly, the security stack has to be embedded inside that network. So both the security stack for securing your network traffic, what you have today in your data center, as well as CASB for securing access to SaaS applications with all the different subscription services that you have in your on-premise security stack today. Okay, so it looks simple. It actually is simple once you deploy it. I'm not saying that it's simple to build it, but once you build that, you've built the right solution. You build a private network. If the private network has enough POPs around the world, let's say 100 or more than 100, such that no matter where you're trying to onboard the IP VPN, with a few hops you'll be there, and then from there, of course, things are guaranteed, then performance is going to be pretty much the same as the traditional MPLS-based IP VPN, only in that here, you have much better access to SaaS applications and cloud applications, and you've consolidated all your access needs. Remote users, branch offices, partners, traditional data centers, cloud data centers, and SaaS into one system with complete security built in. Okay, so that's the solution we are proposing. We're not the only ones proposing it. Like Amit said, a couple of months ago, Gartner published a paper titled SASE, that's how you pronounce this, SASE, Secure Access Services Edge, in which they talked about very, very similar concepts. What they talked about is the convergence of security and networking with all these different features, which, by the way, as you probably know as our customers, we provide all of them in our firewalls. or in our CASB. And those that we don't, we might announce today, we'll see. Actually, I think the press release is out already, so we announced, right? And Lee will talk about it later. And all of that converge into one system. So we believe in that. Gartner believes in that. And I think that it's more than this. You know, for the last 25 years, ever since I started my career in the cybersecurity industry, when I was 5, I've been hearing this rumor that the networking vendors are going to kill the standalone cybersecurity vendors, because why would you want to buy a standalone security solutions when you can buy it embedded in your routers and your switches and your network and so on? And it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened because security turned out to be more important than networking, and nobody was willing to give up the level of security they were getting from the standalone security vendors in order for the convenience of running security inside the network. I actually think that the days where security and networking converge are coming. I just think that it's not going to be the security vendors that are going to get the short stick here. Okay, I think the networking vendors are the ones that are going to suffer from this convergence, and the value of the networking vendors and the need for independent networking vendors would probably be reduced, especially for WAN, especially for branch offices, of course, in data center as well because of the cloud. We'll see what remains of them when this happens, okay? So I have a simple job. My job is to draw things like this on whiteboards. When I draw it on a whiteboard, it looks a little bit more complicated than this, but I just draw it on a whiteboard, and then someone else goes and builds that. It's great. It's a system. You convert whiteboards to solutions. It's very complicated. It takes hundreds of people, and it takes many, many months, if not a year or more. And the person that's doing all of that is our Chief Product Officer, Lee Klarich, who I would like to invite to stage now in order to tell you how do we do this, okay? So Lee?
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? All right. Yes, Nir draws on the whiteboard, goes on vacation for a year, comes back, says, hey, look at that, we built something. Yes, there's a lot of people behind what we build, though. Nir did an excellent job of setting up the market need, the dynamics, the evolution, and even setting the stage for the vision for how to approach this. How do we solve this in the right way? And of course, translating that into products, that is Prisma Access. Prisma Access is the industry's most comprehensive and capable secure access service edge. And today we're actually doing a lot of product announcements here at our EMEA Ignite show. And we're going to start with actually a whole series of announcements around how we're expanding Prisma Access to be even more capable around the networking side, the security side, as well as the management side. And it's really these three areas that make up Prisma Access in our SASE solution. And we're going to start on the network. The network is really important. The network is effectively that user experience, and having a really good network and network connection is very important for enabling the users to connect to the applications as quickly and as reliably as we possibly can. Really trying to replace and even up-level what they used to get with MPLS services. So I'm going to start with something that we actually rolled out a couple months ago, but it's really important to describing how we approach this with the best possible capabilities. And that is, at the end of July and early August, we upgraded the network component of Prisma Access to include over 100 locations around the world. Over 70 countries are included in that list. This is important. This is once we onboard the connection, can we do that as close to the user or the branch office as possible? And then from there, can we leverage that global network in order to have the best possible transit to the ultimate destination, whether the destination's in the data center, in the cloud, SaaS applications, et cetera. So with Prisma Access, we have over 100 locations globally for onboarding and connecting across a private network for optimal transport. Now, Nir described, though, a really important requirement, which is how do we best get traffic onto this network? And so with that, the first new capability we're announcing here at EMEA that has been hinted at a little bit is SD-WAN. With Prisma Access, we will now be able to extend to include a secure SD-WAN solution for that first mile onboarding into Prisma Access. This is integrated. We'll be able to provide ease of onboarding, ease of configuration. We'll talk about the integrated management plane later, high performance end-to-end. Now you may wonder, how is it that we were able to just do SD-WAN? Isn't this like a whole market? Isn't there whole companies that are formed to do this? The reality is, with PANOS, we have had a lot of the core capabilities required to do SD-WAN for a very long time. A lot of these capabilities are the foundation of being really good at network security. But we did have to extend those capabilities. And that is how we're able to go from being the absolute best at network security to being the absolute best at secure SD-WAN. Leveraging that foundation and adding the additional capabilities required on the SD-WAN side for choosing the right link, monitoring the paths, failing over as needed, tying that to our understanding of the applications, tying that to understanding of the network and everything else. So this is one side of the how do we make sure that there is end-to-end network optimization. The other side of this is handing off from Prisma Access and our network to the applications that you're trying to get to. And to the best of my knowledge, we are the first vendor to offer SLAs, service level agreements, for that connectivity to a number of SaaS applications. We're starting with some of the leading SaaS applications in the world. We'll extend this over time. But where we are actually putting our money where our mouth is, and we are offering an SLA because we're so confident in our ability to deliver fast handoff to the SaaS applications. All right? Think about, so if you combine these three things together, you take SD-WAN, which is optimizing the first mile onto the network, that middle mile, which is far longer than a mile, it's like thousands of miles, having a proprietary best-in-class network, plus SLAs for the last mile, handoff to the SaaS applications, which are some of the most critical business applications users are trying to get to, gives us that end-to-end network optimization delivered as part of the service. Now, as Nir said, it's not just about the network. It's not just about providing connectivity. We have to secure it. And ideally, we need to secure that with the absolute best enterprise-grade security. Now, of course, with our foundation, this is very core to what we do, and Prisma Access has offered some of the best security capabilities since it was brought to market a couple years ago. We've been working on that. We've been extending it. And just this past weekend, we upgraded Prisma Access for all of our existing customers and got it ready for any new customer coming on board with additional capabilities. We've added DNS security. It is exciting, it's okay. We added DNS security. This was first rolled out on our hardware and virtual form factors earlier this year, now available in Prisma Access. I'm going to go in more detail on that later today. But this is really taking hold amongst our customers. It's a great security service. And for the first time, we're offering DLP in an inline security form factor. Natively built in to Prisma Access. And of course, XDR, being able to collect the data from Prisma Access to perform analytics, detection, investigation, response workflows. So a very broad set, but also a very deep set of enterprise-class security services built natively into Prisma Access. So let me talk just a little bit on the DLP. This is new. So we've had this on Prisma SaaS for the API-based SaaS security for a couple years now. And just a couple months ago, we upgraded that with a whole new set of patterns and analytics and DLP capabilities in order to make that even better. And what we rolled out this past weekend is the ability for that same engine to be applied to inline traffic with Prisma Access. Consistent policy management, consistent visibility, consistent detection capabilities, now applied to both inline as well as API to the SaaS applications. That is obviously available now for Prisma SaaS because it's been available for a couple months. It's available in a evaluation mode on Prisma Access initially. We'll be rolling that and expanding that and making it production grade here in the coming months. So really excited about the expanding security services that go hand in hand with the expanding networking capabilities of Prisma Access. One more area, management. As Amit described, having a single control plane across all form factors is incredibly valuable. And Panorama has been able to provide that. We use the plugin architecture in order to make that possible, where we can have consistent security across all form factors, hardware, virtual, and Prisma Access as a service. But we also just rolled out and are publicly announcing for the first time here today the ability to have a cloud-based management solution for Prisma Access. If you think about this, and many of you have asked for it, Prisma Access is a cloud-based solution, and you would love to have a cloud-based management framework to go with that. And this Prisma Access management plane is designed very much as a cloud service and is designed very specifically to model the workflows required for Prisma Access. So now you all have the option of either Panorama or going with the native cloud management solution for Prisma Access built directly into the service. It's super cool, it's modern, and it's designed for the workflows of Prisma Access. And when you take all of that together, both what we had plus what we just announced, this is what it looks like. This is what the most comprehensive secure access service edge looks like. All of these security capabilities, all of these networking capabilities, an integrated control plane for management across all of that. Truly incredible capability. All right. That's how we use the cloud to deliver this security. Let's talk about how we secure what runs in the cloud itself. Okay? More and more applications are being deployed in the cloud, being deployed in public cloud, consumed from the cloud, et cetera. How do you secure that? It's not actually that easy, unless you use the right solutions. But a lot of us, I think, hoped it would be really easy. A lot of us hoped that by running an application in the cloud, it would just be inherently secure. It wouldn't have to do anything. Just by running in the cloud, it somehow natively picked up, intrinsically, magically, whatever word you want to use, just magically picked up security. It doesn't work that way. There is a shared responsibility model. The cloud service providers provide security for their infrastructure. But everything you run in the cloud, you are responsible for. And it's a lot. And to make it even a little more challenging, when you think about what an application looks like when it's developed for the cloud, in many cases, it's broken apart into different microservices. And these different microservices are often deployed across different technical stacks. And so an application in the cloud actually has these different components running in different tech stacks. How do you secure that? Well, as a starting point, what security do you need to provide? There's a lot. you basically have to do all of the same things you do for an application running your data center, but now you have to do it in the cloud. So the form factor changes, the approach changes, but what you have to do ultimately is actually very similar. But then you need to make sure you can apply it across all the different technical stacks. You need to apply it for portions running as virtual machines. You need to apply it for portions running as containers, for serverless functions, for PaaS services. And so, in a similar way to what Nir was mentioning, history has a habit of repeating itself sometimes. So what has the security industry done to approach this? Well, somebody came along and said, well, I think I can do vulnerability management on VMs. And then someone came along and said, well, I think I can do that for containers. And someone else said, well, I think I can do workload security for VMs. And pretty soon, we end up with this mess. And all that complexity, the 212 vendors that Amit mentioned, all of a sudden they all end up in the cloud providing point solutions for different aspects of this problem. I don't think we can let history repeat itself. I don't think this is going to work in the cloud. And for that, we built Prisma Cloud, a cloud-native security platform designed for the cloud to protect applications in the cloud. That will provide all these different capabilities, that will provide these capabilities across all different technical stacks, virtual machines, containers, serverless, PaaS services, across the full CI/CD pipeline, that will then apply that across different cloud environments, public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, as consistently as possible, so that in one place, you can get a full cloud security suite that can understand your entire application and provide security for it, even in applications developed using these multiple tech stacks. Now, we've talked about this before. So what's new? Well, for those of you paying attention, back in July, we acquired two companies. We acquired Twistlock, which was, from our perspective, the leading container security company out there. We acquired PureSec, which was the technology leader for serverless security. Now, most of you have probably been thinking about container security. It's sort of front and center to a lot of folks. Many of you probably haven't started even thinking about serverless security, but this was our approach to get ahead of the next need that you're going to have. Because very few cloud-native applications are being developed these days without some amount of serverless capability as well. So we acquired these two companies in July. And we told you, we're going to integrate them into Prisma Cloud. And a lot of people said, whoa, geez, it's going to be a lot of work. How long is it going to take? Are you sure you can do it? Integrations are hard. We've seen this before, and sometimes things never get integrated. Probably guessing where this is going, right? So in a couple of weeks, we are going to have the Twistlock container security capabilities and the PureSec serverless security capabilities integrated together and then integrated into Prisma Cloud. So 5 months after acquisition, we will have both products integrated into Prisma Cloud as we continue to expand the capabilities of our cloud security. Now, what are you looking at? On the left-hand side, you see Prisma Cloud, and you see the different capabilities, the different, effectively different tabs within Prisma Cloud and what it offers. What you're seeing is a new Prisma Cloud Compute Security tab, and with that, it lands on what is called Radar. This is Twistlock's capability for how it visualizes connectivity between all the different nodes of applications. And from that visibility, you can start to see alerts, you can see how your policy is set, et cetera. So this is showing natively built into Prisma Cloud is a new pane of glass for container and serverless security right there. Very cool. Now, so one last piece of cloud security, VM-Series. Inline security is still very relevant in public cloud environments. It's also relevant in private cloud, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. VM-Series runs on what at this point must be the most extensive set of hypervisors in the planet. And it continues to get better and better and better. We not only expanded the multi-cloud support, we've continued to expand the automation capabilities. Bootstrapping, dynamic provisioning, automation is super important in the cloud. VM-Series has a ton of different integrations for that. And again, it keeps expanding. And earlier this year, we announced a new plugin architecture for VM-Series that allows us to more rapidly deliver new capabilities and adapt to changes in public cloud infrastructure. And this has also been super, super beneficial to our customers. It allows us to adapt to their needs much more quickly and not have to wait for next major releases. We had our first, we call it XFR release a few months ago that added a bunch of capabilities outside of the normal cycle. It integrates with the next PANW release. So a lot of really good stuff happening with VM-Series as well to help round out the capabilities of securing public cloud. Overall, though, what you are seeing from us and what you will continue to see from us is an execution on this strategy, which is being best in class at the core cloud security requirements that you have for how to secure an application running in the cloud. Being best in class at these different capabilities, but importantly, integrating them together into a single platform under Prisma Cloud to make it really easy to consume these capabilities across your full tech stack and CI/CD pipeline. All right? Now, we're going to shift gears. And to shift gears, I'm going to invite Nir back up on stage. If this, yes? There we go. Nir?
Cool. Thank you, Lee. So I'm back here to talk a little bit about Cortex, right? We talked about Prisma, which is our journey to the cloud solutions, both access, because applications are moving to the cloud, and securing the cloud, because applications are moving to the cloud. Cortex is about securing the future. And what we mean by securing the future is mostly around the Security Operations Center, which needs to go through a major change in order to be able to support even what's happening today, but certainly what's coming in the future. And it's the automated attacker, right? The attackers are becoming more and more automated, so we have to change the way things work in the Security Operations Center. It's because data is becoming more and more important in our lives in many different areas, security as well. So the Security Operations Center has to be more data-driven versus guessworks or whatever they do today. And it's also the move to the cloud that is driving a change in the Security Operations Center. And that's because in the traditional data center, when new applications had to be deployed and they needed access to the outside, they needed access to different applications or to different components in the data center, like databases and storage, and so on, the developers of the applications always had to come to the security group, get down on their knees, and beg you to open the right access, usually with a firewall. And that's something that usually the network team, if they feel like it, would do, right? I'm exaggerating, of course. In the cloud world, in the public cloud world, it doesn't work like that. There's no single control point where you can control everything that's happening in the cloud. And the mode is more trust and verify. You put guardrails. These are things that the cloud developers have to be within. But inside there, there's a lot of freedom. And there's a set of rules that they need to follow. But there isn't really a way to enforce those rules. And the way it works is you trust them to follow the rules, but you need to verify. And when you trust and verify, it's not the network security team and it's not the security engineering team that's doing that. It all falls on the shoulders of the security operations team, of the SOC. Because whenever something is not verified, it's their job to go and deal with that. And all these things together are changing the way the Security Operations Center works. Whereas today, the way they work is just not scalable. We're talking about 175, this is an average that we're seeing across our customer base, 175,000 alerts per week, right? You don't have enough people to handle that. So today it's more of a guesswork of, we should probably handle these alerts and not these alerts. These alerts come from more than 30 different products, right? Up to 200 different products, and are very difficult, of course, to imaginize and get context. And that also leads to about average 4 days of time to investigate an attack. So even if there is a data breach and you know about it immediately, which usually you don't, it takes still 4 days to investigate it, figure out what happened, and start the recovery process. And it just cannot continue like that, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse with the things that I described just now. So what's the issue? The issue is that today, at the core of the Security Operations Center, we have something called a SIEM, Security, Incident, and Event Management, which is a technology that doesn't do any security, incident, and event management. You do that elsewhere, right? Anybody's doing incident and event management in their SIEM? No one, right? Because they just don't do that. They collect logs. They collect logs from network devices and network security devices, from endpoint agents, from servers, from applications, and whatever you want to push into the SIEM, it will take. Those logs don't have a lot of information for making decisions. You do have some rules. You can have some rules, especially around the alerts that the SIEM collects, in order to decide which alerts to handle and which alerts not to handle. And these are usually not the best rules in the world. It's very hard to do that with rules. And there are some rules also to trying to figure out about new attacks. And a lot of the work is just manual. Something happens, you look at it, you send a security analyst, they investigate, and they figure out how to deal with it, which really results in a reactive response and reactive investigation. A very long time passes between the time something happens until you can react to that. And if we double click into it a little bit more, this is kind of the SIEM architecture today, right? I'm not going to get into it. It's more or less like this, but more importantly, because the SIEM just collects logs, doesn't collect any data, so it can't really do any meaningful analytics, what we're seeing with what the industry really knows how to do well is many vendors being created in different verticals and different silos to overcome that. So specifically, SIEMs don't collect data from endpoints. They collect logs from endpoints. If the endpoint found a virus, the SIEM will know about it, but the SIEM doesn't collect data in order to be able to detect things that the endpoint or whatever is running on the endpoint hasn't been able to detect. So since SIEMs don't do that, what are we going to do? We're going to create a new industry. We're going to call it the EDR, Endpoint Detection and Response Industry. We're going to overfund it with hundreds of millions of dollars, create multiple companies that spend $2 to sell one. Great. And they're going to collect data from the endpoints into a separate data lake, into their own data lake. And then they're going to use rules, maybe machine learning. In many cases, they will offer also a managed service, a managed hunting service, where they put humans on the data. The humans look for attacks on your behalf, and then if they find an attack, whether using rules, using AI, using humans, they're going to generate an alert, because the SIEM doesn't have enough alerts yet. And in some cases, they're going to have the endpoint block the attack. That's not enough. We need to do something in the network. We need to put something in the network to collect data from the network, because firewalls don't really collect enough data. So a new industry called the NTA, the Network Traffic Analysis Industry, has been created. They ask you all to put sensors all across your network. They will collect deep data from the network into yet another data lake, process that data with rules, machine learning, humans, whatever. If they find something bad, right, they're going to send an alert to the SIEM. So you have a little bit more work to do, or more alerts to ignore. And rarely they're able to go back and make modifications to the network. And the same thing is happening with public cloud. And the same thing is happening with SaaS. And the same thing is happening with IoTs. You want to secure IoTs? No problem. There are multiple vendors out there that will be happy to sell you a set of sensors to deploy across your network, collect that data into yet another data lake, process that data, and if they find something, they'll tell you about it, and in rare cases, they'll be able to stop it. This cannot continue, okay? Now, this is not the first time I show this slide. I actually showed this slide a year and a half ago at Ignite of last year in the US, in Anaheim, California, right next to Disneyland. And back then, it was just after we bought a company called Secdo, which is an EDR company. I said, EDR is dead. So why did you buy an EDR company? Well, I said EDR is dead because this doesn't make sense. And we bought an EDR company in order to integrate the EDR company with the NTA company that we acquired before that, a company called LightCyber, and with cloud companies, security companies that we acquired, like Redlock and Evident and others, and with, now we also acquired an IoT security company, and so on, and build what we think is the right solution, which is collect all the data from all these different sources into one place, not necessarily one data lake, but one place, process all that data together, not put the blinders on and just process endpoints separately from network and so on. The attacks happen across the entire infrastructure, so process the data from the entire infrastructure together, and if you find something bad, you respond back to the entire infrastructure. And back then, we said, we're going to call this XDR. Why XDR? Because it's anything, anything detection and response, not just endpoint detection and response or network detection and response and so on. It's anything detection and response. And we announced that we're going to build the XDR product, and we did, and we delivered XDR to the market, and guess what? With the help of some analysts, the copycats came, right? Which is great. So an analyst from Forrester immediately agreed with us and said, yeah, XDR is the way to go. EDR doesn't make any sense. And all of a sudden, everybody has XDR, or almost everybody, which is great. It's validating that EDR doesn't make sense and NTA doesn't make sense, and doing those things in silos don't make sense. And if everybody's saying that this is not the way to go, then it's probably not the way to go. And now, there's the question of who does that best, and you'll evaluate the products and you'll figure that out. So it's great that the industry is now standing behind the concept of collecting all the data into one location, processing it together, and responding back to the entire infrastructure. Okay, so that's what Cortex XDR is about. Now, Cortex in general, and there are other things inside Cortex, is about, number one, not collecting logs, but collecting what we call good data, meaning data that can be used for computer-based, software-based analytics. That's good data. It's not any data. I don't need to know that the firewall dropped something. If the firewall dropped something, all the analytics in the world is not going to help you to drop it because it's already dropped. You don't need to know that there's something bad. You don't need analytics to know that something bad happened, okay? So we don't need that. But we need good data. We need data that can be useful for analytics. Then, rather than using rules, we need to do machine learning-based analytics and some human-based analytics as well. And whatever we come up with, we need to automate. And that's what Cortex is about. The result of that is very quick response to incidents, which is fully automated, and we become proactive all of a sudden. Something happens, very, very quickly thereafter, the system figures out that it happened and responds to it automatically. Okay, so that's what Cortex is about. It has two parts to it today. The first part is Cortex XDR, which automates really three things. Cortex XDR automates hunting using analytics. It will hunt for attacks that traditionally humans will, so that the humans can hunt for attacks that machine analytics cannot hunt for. It automates investigation, or at least a big part of the investigative process. And it automates the consolidation of alerts or alert reduction. It can take many different alerts and consolidate them into single incidents. So that's Cortex XDR. And there is also the Misto, which is part of Cortex, And that's a SOAR, S-O-A-R, Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response system, which collects or takes this meaningful data and automates the process of enriching it, running playbooks against it, and making modifications to anything in the infrastructure that needs to be modified in order to deal with an attack. Again, these together create the Cortex family of products. And here are the results so far. I'm proud of the results, but certainly I'm not going to sleep at night until we show much better results. So what we're seeing so far with Cortex XDR is 50x reduction in the number of alerts, meaning on average, we will take 50 alerts and convert them into an incident. And the second thing that we see is that investigations are 8 times faster because of the automation of big parts of the investigative process. And then with the MISTO, we're seeing 95% reduction in the number of alerts that humans have to touch, meaning 95% of the alerts are being handled automatically, which allows security operation centers to switch to a mode where all alerts are being handled. Most of them automatically, some of them with humans. And those that need to be handled with a human involved are 90% faster. So you get 10x the capacity of your humans in the SOC to handle alerts, and they only need to handle 5% of the alerts versus today. These are amazing results, but by no means the end. This is just the beginning. We're going to get much, much better than this, okay? And to tell you a little bit more about how and what is it that we do, I'd like to call Lee back to stage. Thank you.
All right. Awesome. So if we take what Nir said, I have to try to simplify things in my own brain. I simplify it down to what you see here. Step 1, prevent everything you can possibly prevent that is known to be bad. That's a good first step. It's not complete, because there will still be stuff you have to detect, but prevent as much as you can. Then collect as much the right data to perform analytics to detect things that weren't prevented outright. Facilitate as automated as possible response to those. So prevent, detect, respond, automate. So to do that, one of the key components is XDR. Nir mentioned changing the industry and having the industry start to follow us. Today we are announcing XDR 2.0. So this has been an incredible release. Lot of effort behind making it possible. It'll be available early December timeframe, but we want to take this opportunity to share with all of you the exciting work we've been doing. A lot of components to this, but I boil it down to 3 pieces. The first is we rebuilt and extended the portion of XDR that connects with endpoint protection. I'll describe that in a second. Second is we delivered a completely reimagined, built from the ground up local analysis engine for preventing malware. And third, we have opened XDR up to third-party data. I'll describe each of these 3 in a little more detail because they are all very important enhancements to XDR. So first, as many of you probably know, when we first launched XDR earlier this year, we had this great data collection, analytics, investigation response component, and one of the most important data sources for this was endpoint data. And so we bundled Traps with XDR. We bundled Traps. Traps had TMS for managing it. This is a good solution. But the first component of this XDR 2.0 release is that endpoint protection is now fully integrated into XDR. There's now an XDR agent for endpoint protection, and the management of it is natively part of the XDR management UI. End-to-end integration with XDR. Second, we delivered an endpoint protection module for device control. I've heard from many of you this is something that you would like to see. Natively built in to this new XDR 2.0 framework, the first of what I expect to be many additional endpoint modules that can simply be enabled and plugged into the XDR framework. And third, in the process of rebuilding the management UI, we took a look at the top 25 feature requests from all of you for TMS, and we said, you know what? I think we can address those as well. So the vast majority of the top 25 feature requests that all of you had have also been addressed as part of rebuilding this management UI infrastructure into XDR. So that's the first piece. Second piece, local analysis. So local analysis is really important. It takes place in the pre-execution phase when a user clicks to open up an application. And before that application is executed, local analysis happens. Local analysis also has the unique benefit of being something that can run both when the endpoint is connected to the internet as well as when it's completely offline. And we took this capability and we completely reimagined it from the ground up, achieving, based on our measurements, at least a 10x improvement in accuracy. That is just incredible. And based on our initial testing, best in class across the industry. So how do we do it? A lot of work went into it, but I'll summarize it in 3 pieces. Starting at the bottom, it's all about having the right data. Leveraging, in particular, all of the data that Wildfire collects, but then extending that with some third-party sources as well, we are able to build a fantastic and broad set of curated data about known bad and known good. This is the data that's used to train the local analysis engine. So the broader that data set is, the better the results are going to be. Second, we went through an extensive process of evaluating hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different file attributes to figure out which are the most accurate in predicting whether a new file that's never been seen before is good or bad. And we selected from that the right set of file attributes that we would use. And then the third piece is we found a way to solve one of the challenges in local analysis, and that is the frequency of upgrading the training models. We can upgrade and update this training model basically as fast as we want to. We can easily do it every day if we needed to, do it every week. That is really important. As we see changes in the attack landscape, it allows us to adapt very quickly to changes. So really it's the combination of all 3 of these that really allowed us to achieve the results that we're seeing with this new engine. And third, and might be the only time that you see me have a slide with some of these vendors on it. No, it's not true. We'll have more of these. Look, in the effort to become the foundational platform of choice, it does mean that we will be integrating with other companies out there. Sometimes those companies will be partners of ours, and sometimes they might be competitors of ours. But we recognize that many of you do have heterogeneous environments. And instead of simply saying, it's okay to have blind spots, no. We're going to take that data in, and we're going to use it to provide the best analytics and outcomes we possibly can. A week and a half ago, we added the first of these vendors. Cortex XDR is now collecting checkpoint alerts and logs and using those for analytics and investigation and response. And as part of the December release of XDR 2.0, the other vendors you see here will also become part of Cortex XDR. So in addition, So in addition to our own good, great data sources, we're now collecting data from other sources, and we'll be extending that over time. You know, it's funny, when we acquired Demisto back earlier this year, one of the main questions I got from folks was, are you going to maintain the open connections with Demisto? Are you going to maintain these third parties, even when those third parties might be competitors of yours? I said, oh, absolutely, we're going to do it. And I told him again, I said it again, I said it again. It was really important, it's foundational to the value of the product. And I think everyone wasn't quite sure whether we were going to really maintain that commitment. And instead, we're extending that commitment across other products, including XDR. And our customers are recognizing it too. XDR has really taken hold since we released it earlier this year. This is a case where Cortex, as well as many of the other components and products from Palo Alto Networks, are protecting the entire state of North Dakota. It's not often that you have the opportunity to protect an entire state. And this is a customer that's been very involved in our approach and the capabilities we've been building out and helping to drive the direction. And you can see the value that they're getting out of it. Now, there is a certain amount of automation that's built into XDR. But the real automation platform is, of course, with Demisto. And Demisto supports a wide range of automation use cases. Many of these are what would fall under the broad definition of SOAR. Some of these even extend beyond that definition of SOAR. And we are seeing incredible traction across our customers that are adopting Demisto in order to achieve ever greater amounts of automation. The future of cybersecurity simply cannot rely on massive amounts of manual effort. There are not enough people in the world that could be hired, let alone trained, to do all of this. We have to complement the people effort with the automation effort. And Demisto is that platform for automating more and more and more of what the SOC needs to do. Just to set an example for this, simple use case. How many of you receive IOC feeds from some external source? My guess is 100% of you. Now, you might not think of it as an IOC feed. Maybe you just see it as news. Maybe some of you have more built-up SOC operations where you're receiving multiple IOC feeds, indicators of compromise, for those of you wondering what the acronym is. And what do? In most cases, you have some SOC analysts, and maybe multiples of them, whose job it is to review the IOC feeds and try to pick apart what is useful, do some manual matching, manual queries against your logs, and see if you have any matches. If you have matches, then you have to go investigate those, and ultimately provide some report, some summary report of what you did with that feed that day, because many of these feeds are updated on a daily basis. That is crazy. That just can't be the way that this works. And so this is just one of hundreds of examples where Demisto can fully automate that process end-to-end with a playbook. Just one example of hundreds where we can automate highly manual work and achieve much, much, much better outcomes. And just a couple months ago, we updated Demisto version 5.0, added a number of new capabilities, as you see here. And probably the most important one is actually not even listed here, which is the ability to collect telemetry data for how Demisto is being used, which playbooks are being used, which integrations are being used, what is the outcome? Was the playbook able to run to completion fully automatically? Why would we want to know this? Because all of you want to know it. Wouldn't you want us to be able to tell you which playbooks are most valuable, which integrations work the best? And we're starting to get that telemetry data, and you'll start to see the benefits as customers of Demisto, where we're able to give you more insights into how to get the most out of this platform. Now, we started off talking about the cloud, talked about the future. I want to come back, though, and talk about securing the enterprise. Because there is and continues to be just amazing opportunities to continue to innovate and expand what we're able to do in the enterprise. Nir showed this slide at the very beginning. There's multiple form factors for security. The hardware form factor where we started, expanding into virtual form factors, and as a service. That is one area where we continue to put a lot of focus in securing the enterprise, is giving you that flexibility to consume it in whatever way you want to. And in most cases, a combination of these different form factors. And just as importantly, if not more importantly, enabling you to consume even more security services on top of those form factors consistently. This is something that we've always been very focused on as a company. It started with threat prevention and URL filtering. It extended with Global Protect. It extended with Wildfire. Most recently this year, DNS security. And actually, maybe most recently, what we announced 40 minutes ago with SD-WAN. And it's going to continue to extend. IoT security, with the announced acquisition and actual acquisition of a company called Zingbox, is focused on IoT. And we have ideas, and we're starting to work toward probably 5 to 10 more security services that can be delivered consistently across these different form factors. This is to greatly simplify the consumption of security, but also provide much greater integration of those capabilities as well. So I want to talk about two of these in particular, just to show what is possible with this approach. So DNS security. Announced earlier this year, incredibly simple, yet incredibly powerful. Now, the simple side of this is that with a new attached subscription that was just released about 9 months ago, we've gone from the first 3 months of analyzing about 500 million DNS requests. 3 months after that, we about quadrupled that. And now we're at a point where about over 6.5 billion DNS requests have been analyzed with the service. That's in just the first 9 months. You can see the trajectory for how fast and easy and simple it is to consume this and take advantage of it. Now, there's the easy part of DNS security, then there's actually the hard part. Who can see the hidden animal? Who thinks it's the ibex? No. Those aren't the hidden ones. It's the leopard. So there's the simple side of DNS security, but there's the powerful side of DNS security, which is effectively trying to find the really well-hidden stealthy attacks. Attackers are starting to understand that DNS is a great avenue for both delivering attacks as well as exfiltrating data after they've successfully compromised a network or a host. So yes, we have to block known bad domains. We even do analytics to be able to predict the next domains and block those. We then identify the host, et cetera. We do all of these pieces. This is what you would expect. But we do something else that's really, really important, which is the ability to detect and prevent tunneling over DNS. And just about a month ago, we wrote a blog. It's very interesting reading if you have time. Our Unit 42 team did this on an attack called X-Hunt. This was detected and prevented using the DNS security service. Now, what was interesting about this attack, it was very, very clearly professional and/or nation-state level. It was specifically using DNS tunneling for both infection as well as data exfiltration. When we analyzed it, the part of the attack was completely intermixed with valid DNS. But when we really analyzed it, you could actually pick out the pattern of the DNS tunneling. As you see here, 5 DNS queries spread across 10 minutes of time. That's the level of patience that attackers have, at least advanced attackers have. This was targeted. This was targeted at specific companies and organizations. with a new approach that hadn't been seen before. And DNS security was able to detect and prevent that attack. Because of the approach that we take with DNS security, how we analyze the data, the machine learning models, and the speed at which we can accurately detect tunneling over DNS allowed us to accomplish that. And we've analyzed this with other solutions as well. Our ability to do, currently we're about sub-minute detection speed for DNS tunneling. We've analyzed other solutions. Some of them don't even do this at all, and some of them take days to detect tunneling. We are sub-minute and continuing to get faster. The second security service I want to highlight for you today is around IoT. Enterprise IoT, I believe, is becoming a massive problem from a security perspective. IoT devices are showing up all over the place. We often talk about this as consumer IoT. My favorite example is connected cows. It's a real example. You can look it up later if you want. But in the enterprise, badge readers, security cameras, printers, some of this handling the most sensitive data of the enterprise. Simply connected, typically unpatched, typically full connectivity, and no one thinks anything of it. That is starting to change because attackers are starting to think about this. They are starting to say, hey, look, there's all these devices on the network. They're unpatched. They have full connectivity. It's a great target. No one's paying attention to them. I'm going to use them to breach a network. I'm going to use them to spread laterally. This is not a secret that I'm telling you right now. Something has to be done about this. And it's for this reason we went out, we scoured the market, we took a look at what everyone was doing in this space, and we identified a company called Zingbox that we believed was taking the best approach to securing IoT. They primarily use machine learning to both detect and analyze IoT devices. This is important. With the number of devices and the rate of change, signatures just can't be relied upon to scale and be fast enough at detecting and understanding new devices. They primarily use machine learning to do this, both visibility as well as analyzing the behavior of these devices. Take that and build workflows that help you keep these devices up to date and patched, but then also integrate with third-party systems in order to make the appropriate policy changes that need to take place. And why I bring this up in this section is because we're actively working toward making this more and more integrated into our different form factors for network security. You can expect us to continue to focus on areas like this, as well as others, as we build out these security services as integrated components of network security. And so with that, we finished by talking about securing the enterprise, new advancements that we've been making and will continue to make there. We had the two big announcements in cloud security: Prisma Access as the expanded SASE solution, and Prisma Cloud expanding with the integration of Twistlock and PureSec, or container and serverless capabilities. And we talked about Cortex and securing the future, with XDR 2.0 and all of the great new capabilities that we're bringing in as part of this solution. Innovation is certainly alive and well at Palo Alto Networks. And so with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for being here with us this week. I hope you learn a lot, meet a lot of people, have some fun in the process, enjoy Barcelona. And with that, thank you.